Okay, so for Unit 5.2, we are going to simplify square roots of negative numbers. Simplify square roots of negative numbers. So, for example number 1, if I gave you the square root of negative 4, okay, square root of negative 4, it used to be that we would say that is equal to undefined. No answer. Okay? But I'm going to give you a new definition. Okay? The new definition is that the square root of negative 1 is equal to I, and I squared equals negative 1. Okay? You are going to have to memorize this because we are going to use it a lot. Okay, so you need to know that the square root of negative 1 is equal to I. I would strongly recommend that you make like a little, make them a little like italicized. Otherwise, they look like ones. So be careful. If it looks like an L, it's not an L, it's an I. Thanks. Okay, so the square root of negative 1 is equal to I, and I squared equals negative 1. Therefore, from now on, when you have a negative 4, that really could be broken down to be negative 1 times 2 times 2. So when I simplify the square root of negative 4, it now can be simplified as 2i. That's your answer for our problem today. Okay, this is 2i. Keep going. Okay, let's think about this. Stop. Okay, you need to break it down to be a negative 1. Okay, and then 4 breaks down to be 2 times 2. So we take out a pair of 2's, and you do not need a pair to know that negative 1, the square root of negative 1, is equal to I. You cannot leave negatives under the square root anymore. Okay? From now on, we do not leave negatives underneath the square root. We take them out, and they are equal to i's. We have a bunch more examples, so just hold on before you all say I don't get it. Okay? Hold on. We have a bunch more. Maddie. I stands for imaginary.
Oh, we should probably write that down.
I stands for imaginary. No, we didn't just choose I. Okay? I stands for an imaginary number. So, this answer is 2i. Let's try another one. If I gave you the square root of negative 5, square root of negative 5, square root of negative 5, okay? Nothing can be broken out of 5, but since there's a negative underneath the square root, you can break out an I, and there's nothing that can be broken out of the 5, so it stays as I root 5. That is completely simplified. Okay, completely simplified, I root 5.
Wait, but if there's a pair, then you can take it out?
Yes. So, if there's a pair of numbers, 2 identical numbers, you can take them out. Anytime there is just one negative number, or one negative sign, it comes out as an I. Okay? Let's try another one. I know this is a new concept, but just hold on for a minute here. Okay? Now I want you to take the square root of negative 36. Square root of negative 36. We know anytime there's a negative, you're going to be able to take out an I. So I know that an I can come out. Now, do you know what is the square root of 36? 6. So this becomes 6i as an answer. 6i. Yes.
Why wouldn't the I come before the 6?
The I doesn't come before the 6 because, you wouldn't write I6. Same thing as you wouldn't write, instead of 6x, you wouldn't write x6. We always, whenever things are attached by multiplication, you always write the number first, okay? You write the variable second. We write the coefficient first, variable second.
Do we have to write the I's like that? Because that's just,
How are you going to write them? I just want you to write an I. I want you to be able, just write an I. Okay, and it has to be a lowercase I. You can't write uppercase ones. Just write an I. Okay, if yours don't have tails on them, I don't care. That's fine. Okay, try another one for number 4. Okay, for number 4. 6 root negative 12 multiplied, just 6 root negative 12. Excuse me. Simplify 6 root negative 12. 6 root negative 12. So you know you're going to be able to take out an I. And what does 12 break down to?
4 and 3.
4 and 3, which breaks down to 2 and 2. Okay, so I know that I can take out an I. So we're going to have a 6 times an I times, I can take out a pair of 2's. And what's left behind? A 3. Simplify this. This becomes 12I root 3. Okay, it's just a matter of practice, okay? Once you start doing this a little more often, then it will become easier for you, okay? I's are used somehow in engineering. I really can't tell you how, but I know that I's are used specifically in engineering. Okay. Okay,
Wow.
let's try another one. Okay, the next thing you need to know is there is a rule. Okay, there's a rule that tells you square root of A multiplied by the square root of B is equal to square root of AB. If A and B are greater than or equal to 0. So now that sounds a little abstract, but I will explain it in just a second. Okay? There's a rule that says square roots of things, when you multiply 2 square roots together, they equal the same, they go under the same bar, okay? You can multiply them underneath the same bar if A and B are greater than 0. What does greater than 0 mean, basically? Basically, it means positive. Does not mean whole numbers. Okay, it means positive. Now, that rule is going to be applied for number 5, okay? If I gave you root negative 6 times root negative 6. Root negative 6 multiplied by root negative 6. Now, yesterday, I told you that if you're multiplying 2 things together, you put them underneath the same bar. But today, I'm telling you, you can't do that yet. The only time you can put them underneath the same bar is if both of what's underneath there is positive. These are not positive, right? So you actually have to simplify first, okay? If I just had you simplify root negative 6, what would you give me? I root 6. I root 6 times another I root 6. So you have to pull the i's out first. You have to pull the i's out before you can multiply. Then if I multiply these together, I get I squared root 6 times 6. Okay, so that means I can take out a pair of 6's. Those get multiplied. Thank you. Then if you multiply these together, we get 6I squared. And now, remember, if I looked up at the top, I told you that I squared equals what? Negative 1. So anytime you have an I squared, you multiply by negative 1. So basically, this is negative 6 as an answer. I squared is equal to negative 1. So anytime you have an I squared, you multiply by negative 1.
So can we do like every time it's like a root negative 6 times like the same number as the first one? Will we automatically know that it's that number? Like will that be in every, like let's say
Yes, it will. But the reasoning is not because you have 2 negative 6's underneath. It's because technically you took out an I, you have another I, and those 2 I squareds make a negative.
So if those were both like negative 5 and we still
Yes, you would, yeah.
So we don't have to do the order that way.
I just want you to understand why that happens. Okay? But a lot of times you're not going to have 2 of the exact same thing. Okay? So I want you to understand why that happens. Yes or no? Hey, listen, this might be your same question. Uh-huh. What would you multiply together to equal 0? It doesn't happen. That doesn't make sense. Right, so I'm saying you can only multiply them together if they're positive or 0. Greater than or equal to 0. You're not going to have that, but technically, if it equaled 0, you would not have to take an I out first. But that is not going to happen. But it could, yes. If it did, yes. Yes, Sky. Right. Technically, a negative times a negative equals a positive. No, that's, I don't know what you're talking about. No, no. Guys, hey, listen, we're not going to do hypotheticals right now. Just let's go with what we're doing right now, okay? I have more examples, so if you still have questions, hopefully they will become a little more clear. Okay? For number 6, if I give you the square root of -6 times -6. Square root of -6 times -6. Now, listen, in this rule, I told you if they are separate, then you can only put them underneath the same one if they're both positive. So that means you have to take the i's out first if they are separate. But if your problem comes to you like this, okay, this one, it's given to you underneath the same radical. So that means that you do multiply here, okay? This would actually be square root of positive 36, which is a positive 6. Okay, so there's a big difference. Big difference here, okay? If your problem comes to you with both negatives underneath the same radical to begin with, then yes, they do multiply together and the negatives cancel each other out. But if you need to combine them, okay, if you have to combine them, you first have to take i's out. Then you can combine them underneath the same radical. Okay? Let's try another one. 4 more. Okay, for number 7. Okay, guys, I need you to quiet down so everybody can hear, please. For number 7, 5i quantity squared. 5i quantity squared. So, anytime we have something squared on the outside, that means you have to square both of the parts that's inside. So really this is 5 squared times I squared. Okay, 5 squared is what? 25. I squared, and I said what is I squared anytime? You multiply by -1, so I like to just cross it out and put a negative out front. So yes, this is equal to -25. Okay, -25. Questions so far? Okay, let's try another one. For number 8, again, we're just going to simplify. For example, number 8, 3 divided by root -7. 3 divided by root -7. Okay, now, I told you yesterday that there was a rule saying no roots in the denominator, right? There's also a rule that says no roots and no i's in the denominator, okay? So there's a rule that tells you no roots, or excuse me, no radicals and no i's in the denominator, okay? Answers cannot have i's or radicals in the denominator. Okay, that's a rule that we have to follow.